VO in Stereo is sponsored by Bodalgo, international voice acting platform.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to VO in Stereo. As always, I'm Jared Breschers, your host. As with me always, Mr. Stephen Coghill. Today's extraordinary, and I'll just cut to it. If you watch TV, if you like comedy, you have turned anything on, then you know this man, or you know this man's work. There's no other way to introduce him. Let me just say, holy shit. Please help me welcome Bruce Vilanch.
It is holy shit. Thank you, darling. Coming from my favorite planet.
Meep, plop, loop, plop.
Meep.
Man,
getting adjusted.
Rest to you. What an honor it is to have you on the show. Thank you so much for carving out some time for us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's fun to see people who live in a guitar museum. It's wonderful.
Right? I've
just like a couple times. The back room at the Hard Rock. Let's see, where should we send this one? Vegas.
This is a fun place to hang out for sure.
Just in the cello.
Come visit, Bruce. Come visit.
Yeah,
anyway, my first question to you, sir.
Pardon me so much.
After thanking you for kind of taking the time for being here, appreciate it. Is where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Paterson, New Jersey, which a lot of people refuse to claim, but I own it now. So I didn't buy it. I take it as my own. But it was a great place to be from. It was a place everybody wanted to get out of. And the proof is when we have our high school reunions, no one lives in Paterson anymore. So this kind of shows to go yet. It was 12 miles across the George Washington Bridge when Chris Christie kept it open to New York. And so I was in Manhattan a lot. I was a child actor, and so I was going back and forth to the city. And that just never stopped. But I was, life was in Paterson, basically.
Right. So was Paterson like a small town?
It was 130,000. It was the third largest city in New Jersey at the time. And it had been a big industrial center. It was founded by Alexander Hamilton, which is why there's suddenly interest in it because of the musical. And now the Passaic Falls, the reason he found it was because there's a great waterfall, Passaic Falls. And it was a source of hydroelectricity early days. And so he built a mill there to work the waterfall. And it became a textile center. And it would have been named Hamilton, except Hamilton was the governor of New Jersey. There was another place named Hamilton already. And Paterson was the governor of New Jersey who gave him the rights. So he named it after him. But as a result, there's now, it's a national park around the falls because once the musical Hamilton happened, it was such a juggernaut that all the preservationists in the area got together and said, we can get federal funding if we can make this a park. So it's now a national park. And there's your thumbnail sketch of Paterson, otherwise known as the home of Hurricane Carter and Lou Costello.
Well, now you know, folks.
Exactly.
Even more than you did before.
More than you wanted to know.
Don't know. No.
So did you have siblings and brothers, sisters?
No, I'm an only child. I was adopted at 4 days, and I am an only child. My father said, "We hit the jackpot. Let's not chance it."
So
that was the official story. That's what my mother told me. I never know, but I have a feeling that they didn't want more than one. They were not that type. They were not family. They were very sophisticated people and were in New York a lot, and they were theater goers, and it was I think it might have hampered them if they had a brood. And once they realized that I was interested in what they were interested in, it was great. It was nice symbiosis.
So you think that you became creative by just osmosis, just with your parents?
I think so. And then I only recently found my birth mother, who is deceased, but we all spit into a cup, and that's how that happened. But she apparently was very funny. I mean, her tombstone says "thin at last." So she had a great sense of humor. Clearly, she took it with her, literally took it with her to the grave. And everybody, that whole family who I've just gotten to know, are all carrying on about not only do I resemble her, but I have the same sense of humor that she had, and so I think it was probably genetic. And I think, but also, I mean, for 150 years I've been talking about my mother and my adopted mother and her sense of timing, and how I grew up surrounded by these. Her family were like, there were vaudevillians in her family, and they were all really funny, and they all, had the zingers coming at you. So I think, that seeped in as well.
I think he created an entertainment juggernaut, but who the hell am I?
Whatever.
You're a soon-to-be juggernaut. Just people out there, watch this guy. Anyway,
I have juggernauts full of wine ready right now.
That's my guy.
You should, Sarah. You should.
Labor Day weekend, pour it on.
Right? We're in a pandemic. You got to have those things on stock.
Quarantining.
Right. You have to. You have to stock up. What was your first thing then as a kid? Were you like interested in arts in the schools, or?
I made faces in the mirror, and I would perform, and at any opportunity. So I was interested in all of that stuff. But I was always like a professional kid. I wanted to do it at a high level, and my parents enabled me. I mean, they wanted me to be happy. They saw I was happy doing it. They weren't stage mothers. This was not Mama Rose. And they also weren't people living off of me like, Britney Spears. It was a healthy thing. They saw it was something I enjoyed doing. Any money I made went into Bruce's college fund, and it was just a great thing. It was my primary passion from as long as anybody can remember. My mother said I learned how to read looking at the movie ads in newspapers. There used to be newspapers. And they would have, the ads, the big display ads for the movies. And that's how I learned how to read. I taught myself, actually.
That's awesome.
What?
Go no. Yeah.
So you were an only child. You went to school. I don't know if they necessarily answered the question whether you were involved in any kind of arts or in the schools, or.
Well, yeah, I did all the school stuff, but that was small time. That was chump change. I wanted the main stem.
So were you looking for, as a kid, for auditions and that sort of thing? Or how did that work?
I would look for them, and I trained my mother to look for them, too. And then they had some friends in the business who said, that he might do that. There mostly was commercials. I mean, as I got older, I did summer stock. I went to a camp that was run by a guy named Ted Mack, the Ted Mack camp, and he was kind of like the Simon Cowell of his day. He had a show called the Ted Mack Original Amateur Hour, which had been on radio, and he'd gotten it from a guy named Major Bowes, who was a big radio star, and he took over the franchise and took it to television. And he's famous for saying no to Elvis. And I remember when I met Anne Margaret, she was on the show. She sang "Them Their Eyes," and you can see it on YouTube. You can see why she became Anne Margaret. But she lost on the amateur hour to a woman who played Lady of Spain on The Leaf. It was just like, if you can't afford a harmonica, you can do a leaf and do that. So I went to that camp, and as part of the camp, we did a lot of shows, and he farmed us out to summer stock companies. So I was acting, and I was by that time I was like a tween, and I was playing much older parts. I played the old character actor parts because I was born 40. I looked older. I was heavy. I had a deep voice, and so I could play all those parts. And then as I got older and I grew into actually acting, I was auditioning up against people who were appropriate for those parts. They were the right age. So I wasn't getting cast at all. And that's when I started writing, because I thought, well, I'll write about what I know, which is show business. And that led to a dual career in performing and writing. And 2 degrees in theater and journalism. So
now I got a question. How much, or if any, has music played in your upbringing as far as coincide with your entertainment or your writing? Like when I write, I find that I listen to a lot of different music depending on what I'm writing.
I listen to everything. I was always very eclectic. You know, there were a lot of show tunes. There was a lot of Broadway back then, and rock and roll, which was the music of rebellion. And I loved jazz because it was hip, and the people I knew who were into jazz were very sophisticated, swinging, and I liked that. I never developed an affinity for country music, and I developed a loathing of hip hop as an adult. But that's because I like real lyrics and not just lyrics where you throw any words that rhyme into them and think you've written a song. So, and I know I'm in the vast minority on this. I know that I'm a dinosaur and I'm totally behind the scene, but I don't really give a rat's ass.
That doesn't make you wrong.
Well, thank you. I'm glad the opinion is shared by someone. Country music I learned to enjoy some of, and I just am working on a project now with Dolly Parton, using a lot of her music. So, and we joke about it. You know, we joke about how I was saying.
Oh, it's not your cup of tea.
Yeah, I was just saying I was pissed off about something, and I was telling her about it. And she said, well, I can't even write a song about that. And I said, my life has come to this. I'm not even worth a country song.
My life is so sad, even country can't be written.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not like, a little girl who gets hit by a school bus and loses her cat at the same time.
Maybe it's not sad enough.
Dolly loves to write that kind of stuff.
Right?
It's not sad enough.
You need at the door in a lot of her songs.
You need to have more tragedies in your life. For
exactly right. I just grew up with urban tragedy, which doesn't really not hold a candle to hillbilly tragedy.
Right.
So,
white people problems.
Exactly.
Not really the same thing.
Exactly. But so it always has played a part. And of course, then I've worked with a ton of musicians on their stage shows, because when they're not doing their music, they have to relate to the audience and talk, and
they got to say shit. And it's got to be interesting.
And you have to weave the shit they just sang with the shit they're about to sing, and they have to give them something to say to give them a personality outside of their music. And
right.
I mean, some of them are not born to have that. Some of them are studio cats, and that's where they really thrive. And the others are performers, are really genuine performers, and want to put on a show. And sometimes you find somebody who's in the middle, like Joni Mitchell, who's so brilliant that the audience is just kind of captivated by the music, and anything she says is just interesting by dint of the fact that she's Joni Mitchell, and her observations are so poetic. There isn't a whole lot you need to do.
Captivating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you met a lot of people, I'm sure, in show business.
Yeah, well, you do. It's kind of like the army. You meet a lot of people.
I mean, it wasn't a question. It was kind of
you met a lot of people.
Obviously.
You've written for so many.
Yeah, I have a question though. Who's the most interesting person you think you've met?
Well, I mean,
jazz to me.
I don't know that anybody ever categorizes like that, but I would be crazy if I didn't say Bette Midler, because she started me. When I was in Chicago, I met her when she was first starting out, and I've been working with her for 50 years. Which we joke, because she's only 38, and
right. That's what it says on her.
I mean, it's been a very long and obviously fruitful, relationship. And she's the greatest. I mean, she's brilliant. When I saw her, I just said, "This is it." I mean, she's such a witty performer in her musical choices, and in her in the persona that she had created when I met her, the Divine Miss M. She was somebody who was a trash collector. She would find music that people thought was disposable. A song like "Do You Want to Dance," which was a boppy little dance tune that turned into this ballad of languor and loving and seduction and all of that. I mean, she found these things and these gems. She's brilliant that way, and I wanted to be a part of that. and I have been. I've been very lucky. And then, obviously, as she's gotten older, I mean, when you're our age, she can't come out there looking like Pandora opened her box and this was what flew out of the bottom. She can no longer be the last of the truly tacky women. When she's going to be the last of truly tacky grandmas, so she's had to adjust as she's gotten older. And then she was a movie star. Once you become a movie star, it's a whole different world. I mean, she took 10 years off of live performing to make movies. And when we went back on the road, there was an audience of people who thought she was the suburban mom who sings Wind Beneath My Wings and From a Distance and The Rose. And they forgot that she was this dynamic, filthy, by their standards, performer, real potty mouth and shocker, and that was wonderful to watch them kind of go, holy crap, who is this woman? And of course, there were the fans who'd been there from the beginning who said, yay, you're still you. Yay.
No, that's awesome. How did you get from writing to then getting on Hollywood Squares and writing for them? Well,
I've been writing shows for 20 years, television shows, variety shows, a lot of that. And when they decided to reboot Squares, they asked me to be the head writer because they wanted to be more of a comedy show. They wanted everybody to have jokes. So I said, sure. And then they got Whoopi to be the center square. And I've been working with Whoopi for years, and we're close friends. And she said, I think Vilanch should host the show. And they thought she was nuts, but they didn't want to piss her off this early in the game. So they tested me. And I got to go, this is for the win, Louise. And it was clear that I was not host material for that show. But they said, we're going to put you in a square. And they put me next to her thinking I would somehow tame her, which is a fool's errand. And they put me to the left of Whoopi, which I say is impossible. You can't be to the left of Whoopi. And it worked out because, as we always say, she's really a gay guy, a gay Jewish guy, and I'm really a black woman.
That makes complete sense.
Ask anybody who slept with me, they'll tell you. So, and it went on that way. It just kind of, it grew. So for 6 years we were doing that. That's how it happened. And then once you're on television every night, you get these offers. Write a book. They asked me if I wanted to audition for Hairspray to play the mother. So I shaved and auditioned, and they gave it to me, and I did it for 2 years. I did a year on the road and a year on Broadway. But we opened in Baltimore, of course. Good Morning, Baltimore, during Hurricane Irene, as I recall. And your inner harbor was flooded.
Right.
As mine frequently is. But
when did you shave the beard? Because I know
I shaved the beard on Regis and Kelly.
Like live on their show?
On television in 2003. Okay. We were in rehearsals. I was going into rehearsals for Hairspray. I actually didn't have to shave it to audition, but I did have to shave it. I asked them if I could play it with the beard, and they said no. That was asking the audience to make too much of a buy. They'll buy that. They'll buy that it's a man playing a woman. They won't buy that it's a man playing a woman who has a hormone problem. That's asking a lot. So I agree.
But you had the beard.
They gave me let me wear the glasses, so that was good.
But your beard was like an iconic thing that you had for a long time.
Oh, it was, I did. I looked like Mare Mountain Dean's long dead character.
You grew it back after that, though, right?
No, never. No.
So after that, you never grew it back.
It's been 20 years I haven't shaved. I had it for 30. I grew it because I was in an Italian movie with Marcello Mastroianni and Lauren Hutton in Chicago in the early 70s. And I had to have a 3-day growth of beard for 6 weeks. And 3 days is like the itchiest thing. It's awful. And so when we finished shooting the picture, I said, that's it. I'm never shaving again. And I let it grow out. And for 32 years, it lived. And then I shaved it for Edna. And once I shaved it, people said, oh, you look much younger. And I thought, well, I live in L.A. Sold. Of course, I also discovered I had all these chins I never knew I had. More chins than the Hong Kong phone book. Thank you.
Right. Exactly.
And I got the butt chin, too. It's horrible.
Yeah,
I got the butt chin. I got
the Hitchcock. I got the wobbles. I'm Jabba the Hutt. I can. Oh, very good. You don't come across it. You do them all. Oh my God, he has the whole repertoire. You don't
does them all.
find any impersonators.
I grew up with all of that. It's hard for me not to sit here and go crazy about Ice Pirates. That's how much of an 80s boy I am.
Famous for my head.
Dude, fucking fantastic. Now,
it was a hit. I mean, it was a half-assed hit. It made money. It did all right. And MGM was in dire trouble at the time. So it was, they never talk about it, but it was a highlight of that period. This is 40 years ago. And it was a picture that just it got snuck in because a guy who was a producer on the lot was made the head of production. So he greenlit his own movie. And it was an 8-week shoot. In week 7, he was deposed as head of production, went back to being producer. A new guy came in and said, wrap this picture next week or else. That's why there's the time warp in the movie.
I hope he gets space herpes.
He really had a fate worse than death, I think. But the whole picture was, I had to come in and rewrite and put in the time warp and all that stuff because we had to wrap it up. And it was, I mean, I originally had come in, it was a writing job, and Paul Williams was going to play Weird Wendell, the evil emperor, and he dropped out, and they said, oh, you can do it. So I was the evil emperor. And I know. Well, he was a crazy character anyway. So, and it was fabulous. I had a great time doing it. It was great fun. Well, and it was Angelica Houston's second movie. She'd made a movie for her father when she was a teenager called A Walk with Love and Death, which had a similar fate. And then she did The Ice Pirates. And the next picture was Prizzi's Honor, which her father directed and for which she won an Oscar. And she got the part because she played the Amazon in Ice Pirates, and her father looked at her and said, well, she's very strong. She can play this part. And, she was living with Jack Nicholson at the time, who was also doing the picture. So she got the part, and she was brilliant in the part, and she won the Oscar and started the thing. But the joke was, she got so famous when she won the Oscar that they all wanted to show her other movies. Well, she'd made 2 movies. So the Ice Pirates kept getting shown, like on Ted Turner fell in love with it, and he would show it on TNT every other week. Okay, lap dissolved 40 years later. Every time I see her, the first thing she says to me is, I can't shake that fucking picture. The first question they asked, they all grew up watching the Ice Pirates, and they asked me about the Ice Pirates. I thought I'd done enough work that it was dead and buried. But no. I'm making it sound like John Lovitz, but it's very funny because she goes into that mode. And, I mean, she's rather distinguished at this point. So it's...
Darling Nigel, we don't even have a map. It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, she's this Oscar-winning serious actress who also plays Morticia Addams, so she has a range, Angelica. She's pretty amazing that way.
Didn't she do like Captain EO's Voyage too for Disney?
The voice, one of the voices. Probably.
No, I think there was a movie
was she in it?
with Michael Jackson.
I don't remember that. Yeah, Coppola directed it, so
exactly. And I think
it would not surprise me.
I think she's like the
draw would have been Coppola and whatever annuity you get from a thing like that. But
I knew that was like one of the first things she did too was back then.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I got a question, and switch gears here a little bit.
Yes.
Everybody likes to get on these interview shows and talk about all the wonderful, beautiful, shiny, happy people and wonderful moments. I like to just know a little bit deeper, more than that, or how you handle situations. If you would be so gracious as to share a moment that completely took the wind out of your sails, and like how you fought through it, how you got through it, and maybe it can help somebody else get through something like that. Because as we all know, it happens whether you want it to or not. So that's something that interests me quite a bit.
Okay. And what do you mean? Just pick one?
Pick any memory that you would like.
I thought you had one. I thought you had one in mind.
Oh my! Well, I wish I knew that much about you.
I thought this was only for the Star Wars holiday special.
Let me get the list. Let me get the list.
Really, there's quite a list. A long time ago, I was on tour with Bette, and we were in Cincinnati, and I remember it vividly. And a fan came backstage, and she had a scrapbook. And it was full of reviews of Bette's records and albums and performances and stuff. And Beth sat there kind of, because she never reads them, and she, imp of the perverse, dove in and she began thumbing through. And she hit upon some like lousy reviews and stuff like that. And she was reading and I could see her expression changing. And finally, she just slammed the book shut and she said, "Fuck them if they can't take a joke." And it became our motto and a mantra. Fuck them if they can't take a joke. And it took me a while to actually internalize that. But and because the first thing you do is you feel worthless because you've been judged. And then you just have to kind of say, well, it ain't over. There's the new thing. I will redeem myself with something else. But, you don't get to be 353 pounds by not caring. You get to do that by eating a lot of pizzas and malteds and comfort food that soothe the internal beast. So I'm aware of that. I mean, I don't weigh that anymore. I lost it. I've never been thin, but there was a great deal of what we call hate weight, and it was self-hate weight. Yeah, and finally got to the point where I had a lap band because there was no way I was ever going to lose it, and I was approaching the age where I was either going to have to do something. So I did, and I lost a whole bunch of it. But I don't do that anymore, and I've learned those little tricks where they say halt, the halt, hungry, angry, lonesome, tired. Say halt. Say, which of these things am I responding to that is making me have the double lasagna?
Yeah.
And
It won't shut
hunger,
up.
anger. Are you generally hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? And the answer is generally somewhere in there. And if you have the presence of mind to actually think about it, that helps. Obviously, there wouldn't be, as my doctor said, there wouldn't be pharmaceuticals. Everybody could cure what they do with diet and exercise. But if everybody did, there would be no pills.
Right.
He said, I always give that speech to all of my patients. You can cure this with diet and exercise. Some things obviously no, but
most things.
The bulk of stuff that afflicts us can honestly be handled that way if you really are serious about it. And that's the point, getting to that point where you are serious and willing to tackle it. So, I would, and I guess the other thing I could say about this particular question is, if you feel lousy, you just have to identify that and say, I feel lousy. This is how lousy feels. I'm pissed off, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I feel rejected, and own those feelings like I own Paterson, New Jersey. Own those feelings and don't deny them, because barring some hideous misfortune, you are doing what you want to do, and if you could change it if you wanted to. But most people live in denial. They refuse to admit that this is what they want to do, or that they don't have the Gadarum to get out of this thing that they're in and do something else. But this TED Talk is getting very grim.
It is. I have a question, just trying to switch the gears.
11 inches. There you go.
Okay, great.
Everybody wants to know. They all ask.
So that's the New Jersey foot long. I don't know. 11 inches. That's what
there
that is.
You must be this tall to ride.
the Widowmaker.
Do you write like song lyrics?
I have. I'm not a lyricist. I write parody lyrics. And I've written a bunch of lyrics to songs that have actually done very well for me that were disco songs, but not in a long time. I wrote, Eartha Kitt had a hit called Where's My Man? That was a big disco thing and brought her back. But, disco doesn't get played on the radio. And so it was, you should pardon the expression, a 12-inch. DJs buy them and play them at clubs. Yeah, back then. And I did an album for the Village People called Sex Over the Phone, which was, a big hit. It was #1 in the UK. And a couple of things like that. But I'm not really a serious songwriter. And I thought maybe I could be. And I called all of my songwriting composer friends and said, let's write something together. And I said, great idea. And then one thing or another happened and I didn't follow through. And a couple of times I did. A couple of times I wrote title songs for movies, and we didn't make it into the movie. You know, I wrote a song for Muppets in Space, and it didn't make it in. And Albert Brooks had a picture called not Coming to America, but Lost in America. And I wrote Henry Krieger, who wrote Dreamgirls, and I wrote a song for it that almost made it as a title song. But I think he decided to go without a title song.
Damn it, Jim.
Or if there is one, I don't remember it at all.
Why are you guys being so mean to Bruce? This is bullshit. Put his song on the movie, you son of a bitch.
Right?
It could have done
Always
better.
The bridesmaid. Always the bridesmaid.
But you know, I did write a lot of parody lyrics with Mark Shaman and Billy Crystal for Billy's opening number on the Oscars, where we would take the titles of the movies that were nominated for Best Picture and write a title song for them.
Yes, I remember that.
We were lucky enough that none of them actually had a title song. So, I mean, it was just luck of the draw. And so we would write these ridiculous title songs for them.
That's hilarious. Wow.
My lyrical career.
Your lyrical career. Yeah, that's crazy that that you know, you didn't write some more song. I figured you'd, you know, written all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it didn't. I guess other stuff got in the way. I can't say it didn't cry out to me to do, because it did. But it's you know, I'm not a poet that way. I mean, I think that there are two kinds of lyricists. And there are people like Hammerstein, who would sit down and write a lyric like a poem and give it to Rogers, and Rogers would put a melody to it. And then there are people who, like me, who a composer hands a melody, and I write stuff that scans, phrases that scan. And sometimes you do it in a room together. A lot of pop writers sit down and they write, and that's what I did actually with my collaborators. Is we would sit down in the room, and they'd be at a piano, and I'd be marching around, and we would kind of come up with a thing together. That's another approach.
That's cool.
But the classical lyricists who I revere, like Cole Porter and Lawrence Hart and Alan J. Lerner and those guys, they were poets. I mean, they wrote poetry, but with an eye towards the rhythm, so that the composer could find a rhythm to put to the thing. That's a whole other. It's a whole other world.
That's
very
true.
Small too. I mean, if it were an easier kind of a skill, more people would do it. But as I say, hip hop has kind of changed that around. You know, you just get a rhyming dictionary and throw a whole bunch of things in there.
And forget about the mumble rap. And you don't need words at all.
Even Sondheim did that. I think as a joke. In Into the Woods, he talked about it's a bump on a hump on a rump with a stump with a lump with a talking about a cow, I think. But I mean, he's obviously you know, one of
he pulled this
thesaurus out. I mean, a genius lyric writer. But I think he did that as a joke, and it kind of presaged hip hop. Because hip hop
what's your favorite
right after that?
What's your favorite thing to write for?
My favorite thing to write, I would guess stay. I mean, I don't have a favorite. I like kind of doing all of them. I like writing for people, for performers who have a persona, because you can write to that, and it's like having a conversation with them. But when you're a playwright or a screenwriter and you invent a character out of whole cloth, you have to. That's kind of like the same thing. I am handed a character, and the screenwriter has to create one. I've done that, so it's all. Anything. Writing is fun. Writing is solitary, except I'm very collaborative. I do a lot of writing with other people in a room. But ultimately, it comes down to you sitting on the blank page of the blank screen and coming up with something. Performing is much more gratifying because there are other people. Even if you're doing it for camera and there's a crew, it's just there's somebody out there who's registering what you're doing. That's a different kind of gratification. Writing, when you get into what I call the alpha state, where you kind of fog out everything else that's happening because you're focused on what you're doing, what you're writing, that is incredibly stimulating and productive. You know, someone like Stephen King has to go someplace remote and sit down and you know, he'll get up 15 hours later having written a book, a novella at least.
Right.
But I'm much too social to do that. I'm not, you know, novel writers tend to be people who can disappear for months on end and come back with a product, you know, a work. Product is so crass. A work. Yeah.
Do you do you give, like, do you take on students? Are you teaching? Do you spread your knowledge about?
Not knowingly. I'm sure I've tutored a few people at times. I've spoken and given master classes and done all that. And a lot of my friends, agents, wind up teaching courses in like show business and writing and stuff like that. But I've never taken it upon myself to say, here's how you write comedy. You know, because the first rule is be funny. And then you can, you know, there are all kinds of, Neil Simon made up a whole bunch of rules that actually work. You know, it's the rhythm of three, where you do the third line is the last line, and the joke line, and words with K are funny. He has a run in the Sunshine Boys, but words with K are funny. You know, Brooklyn is funny. You know, Long Island is not funny. Brooklyn is funny. The funniest city in the world is Pickle Chicken, New Jersey. Yeah. When Walter Matthau says it, of course, it really is funny.
That's hilarious.
But I haven't taken up teaching yet.
I was just curious. It was like a, you know, Bruce Vilanch masterclass.
Well, you know, I might do this if I ever
Gordon
made enough
Ramsay,
money.
Bruce Vilanch, you know.
If I ever made enough money, I would do it.
That's what.
And it's. I have to say, it's Vilanch. It rhymes with ranch, and it's avalanche, but it's spelled differently, and it's a made-up name. I mean,
is it really?
It was made up around 1850 when my father's people
Vilanch
came over, and the family myth was it was a French name, and they had taken an L and an E off of it and made it more German, and. But then my mother, towards the end of her life, said, oh, by the way, that story about the name is all bullshit. My father had been dead for years, and all of his relatives were gone. She said they were Polish, and they had one of those names that started with a V and had 17 consonants and one vowel, and nobody could make head or tails of it. And so they said when they got to Ellis Island, they had to change it. Plus, they didn't want to be Polish in America at that time. They didn't want to be like the Polacks who had come over on the boat. They wanted to be, you know, real Americans. And so they decided that they had a better shot being German than being Polish. This was before World War I. And so they created this name, which doesn't exist anyplace else. And because they were, you know, they're living in Brooklyn, it was Vilanch, because everybody had the long A.
Vilanch.
Vilanch. And here's the best part. They named their daughter Blanche.
Blanche.
Vilanch.
This was not her married name. She was a school teacher in Paterson, and they named her Blanche Vilanch, and it was a family joke. And whenever I'd say, who would do that? I mean, they died way before I was born, so I never knew them. But I said, I want to know what kind of people would inflict that upon a
They had a sense of humor.
And I guess, but they were the Vilanches, who were famous for like not having a sense of humor. So.
They were funny in their own way.
They were funny, exactly. And I never did get to the bottom of it, but she always thought it was hilarious. She loved it, you know, she owned it. She embraced it. She would sing, Blanche, Vilanch, oh, Blanche, Vilanch, lives on a ranch in southern France.
Like to dance.
Yeah,
Ranch.
and then she would do the next thing. I can't do that. That is such a skill. Yeah, there you go.
I drived in Atlanta for long enough that hey, what'd you say, motherfucker?
What'd you say exactly? It's just like that. It's just that next thing. Is that one shot at the end of Stop Making Sense with that the girl in the audience that does that thing. And then there's a guy, in the Bad video, Michael Jackson's Bad video.
Yeah.
Going to do the thing with his.
And there was MC Hammer. You know, he did with the.
Oh, well, but that can be done. I mean, that's.
But he was doing with the head.
Now.
You got to do
Hammer
it the
this,
head at the
hammer
same
this,
time.
hammer that,
Yeah,
hammer that.
Can't do it.
Right.
Can't do it.
I'm a hammer, your hammer, and wrench.
You don't pay me enough to do
Right.
that.
And then, of course, the moonwalk, granddaddy of them all.
Yes.
I will not lie. I had the red suit and the glove, and I wore it to school, and I did not wear underwear that day, and I did a split because I can do splits. I've been able to do splits when I was a young child, and my mom got called to come to the school because I was swinging on the monkey bars and something else was swinging from the pants, and it was not good. And they had my mom come pick me up because my hee was hanging. So it was
No.
bad.
My mom wouldn't let me get. I wanted that jacket. I saw it in the store. I was like, I gotta get the Michael.
One of the funny things in Beverly Hills Cop, when Eddie's walking down the street and there's a guy in a Michael Jackson outfit and he cracks up seeing the outfit, and then a year later he did his stand-up Raw, and
He's wearing the same thing.
The same thing. He's wearing it's not a onesie, but it might as well be.
It's all red.
It looked like it was sprayed on veneer.
Exactly right. I thought it was hysterical.
Sexy
Eddie. Look
Eddie.
at my ass. I got a heat sensor when look at my ass. My ass get hot.
Exactly. That's it.
Dude, some of the most iconic stand-up I've ever seen. You know, Gus, your wife is a Bigfoot. You brought the bitch back from the camping trip, Gus. Google, what the fuck is that? Sorry.
This from Raw. This is Eddie.
Yeah,
We're gonna get copyright
Give
straight.
me half. I want half.
I want half.
Right.
And what have you done for me lately?
I pulled you out of the bush.
When I found you, you had a bone in your nose.
It was genius. It was genius.
Oh, Lord of mercy. So that brings me to another point. Comfort.
What?
Now, I'm a whiskey bourbon drinker myself.
No, it's Diet Snap.
Well,
that was a coincidence.
There we go. Jared's an alcoholic.
They're the same color.
Right. Now,
Water.
comfort. What kind of comfort foods?
What kind of what?
What kind of comfort food and drink do you enjoy?
Well, pasta. I mean, very. All the white foods: pasta, cheesecake, bread. Those are So and anything you can load on it, like pizza, cheese, all that kind of stuff. That's the comfort food, basically.
Whipped cream.
Yeah, and I have to say, I lost weight during quarantine because I couldn't go to the movies and have popcorn.
Nah.
Which I could consume in mass quantities.
There's something magical about movie theater popcorn.
I know, that's exactly right. And I haven't done it almost, and I'm on the verge of going to see something and we'll have popcorn. But
Yeah, you must pay that inflated price for it to be any good.
Right?
Oh, I think that's part of the glamour.
You have
But
to.
for something that you could throw in the microwave at home for 2 cents,
Yep.
you'll pay $9 for a bucket of it.
That's it.
Yeah, you need a bucket, and it's got to be a refillable bucket with a half gallon of soda.
Exactly right. Diet Coke, no ice. That's me.
Coke Zero is amazing.
Coke Zero it's a butch version of Diet Coke.
That's true. Very true.
They got rid of Tab, and they because Tab was the girls' drink, and they weren't making enough money on it. And Diet Coke, which said to women, diet. So which means, okay, this is good. This won't hurt me. But it scared off men. So they came up with Coke Zero because it had more oomph to it. This is true.
I'm not on the diet. I mean,
I'm
drinking Coke Zero.
All this stuff.
Oh, I don't put anything past anybody in the advertising world.
Yeah, and
Got
Coke,
everything I need and zero that I don't.
And Coke, what was it? Coke Classic, the big blunder and all that.
Oh yeah.
Many years ago, they took a bunch of us, flew in a bunch of comic types to Atlanta to come up with a comic ad campaign for Coca-Cola. And they said, we want it to be something that we've never done before. And so we put our heads together and we came up with the following tagline for the campaign: Eat Coke. It wasn't me who came up with it. It was a guy from Second City whose name just escapes me. But they said that funny, and they sent us all home with 6-pack.
Right? They were like, you just removed shit and you put our name. Great.
Right, and they wound up instead with polar bears. That was their comedy. They went with polar bears. The polar bears are funny and lovable, unless, of course, you're a fish or anything else the polar bear wants to eat.
Right? Baby seals.
But now polar bears are, they've been marginalized. We have destroyed their habitat, so now they've become very sympathetic. In addition to being roly-poly and fun, now they're kind of tragic. And who knows how it will end.
Let's not go dark on this show,
No,
okay?
exactly.
I'll back it up.
This TED Talk
like
is taking
refresh.
a
Let's like
deep
breath.
TED Talk head south.
Damn.
Side question. Were you ever on the Muppets?
I worked on the Muppets. I was never actually on the show, although I do look.
Damn it!
I do.
You would have been perfect on the Muppets.
I worked on it, and I worked on the Muppet Show, and I worked on when the Muppets were on Hollywood Squares. I shared a square with Kermit and Piggy.
Nice.
And Elmo Elmo a couple of times did a Christmas special that Elmo was.
Because with the beard, you looked very Muppet-like. I think it would have been perfect.
I was mistaken frequently for, and that was a joke. I said, yes, Jim Henson had his hand up my ass not half an hour ago.
Bruce, they missed an opportunity with that. I'm just telling you. I am telling you.
They were on the Oscars. Piggy came on the Oscars one year and did a two-spot with Whoopi.
Introducing right, exactly.
That was Frank Oz, who was the voice of Piggy and who directed a lot of the Muppet stuff, and who he's brilliant. And he came out of nowhere. I hadn't heard from him in ages. And he came out of nowhere the other day with a Twitter saying that since he hasn't done anything with the Muppets since Disney bought them, that Disney doesn't like him.
Oh, so they kind of shelf.
I was unaware of that. I mean, because Piggy obviously has been used, and I guess Frank hasn't been doing it. But he trained a lot of people to do Piggy. So,
right.
Piggy is my Muppet trivia that I learned. Piggy is the only Muppet whose eyes have actual pupils, because they wanted her to look humanoid. None of the others, they're dots. All of the others are dots for the eyes. But Piggy has an articulated human eye, so that she's more of an actual person than a pig.
That is why I fell in love with her long ago.
Exactly. Well, they're no fools. I mean, that was Jim Henson. That was him. That was the genius at work. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
My childhood in a nutshell. I'll tell you what.
You have any more questions for Mr. Bruce?
I do. It's the most important question I ask anyone ever.
I know you did. That's why I asked.
Here it comes.
So, if you were able to have one superpower, what would it be? What would your superpower be?
Oh, God. Probably flying, because we all dream we're flying. Everybody's had the flying dream.
You need to get someplace.
I suppose that would be it. I mean, the right answer would be to cure cancer. That would be the superpower that you would want to have practically. But the one that would be like fun would be flying, especially if, you had a heavy Mexican meal and you could bomb people.
I think that bird's going to poop it.
Yeah, man, look out. There comes some Rosa Red refries.
That's hilarious.
Ultimate revenge. I'll show you, my pretty.
I'll get you, my pretty. Yeah, here's some burritos, eh?
That's it.
Alialis.
I mean, if there are Mexicans who are offended, it's just because I've had bad luck with Mexican food. I've also had good luck with Mexican food, but it's to me, it's been my bugaboo. It's like, so
you can't go everywhere. You got to go to the right place.
Of other cuisines, I have to say it, but maybe it's because I've tried more Mexican food than I have other cuisines.
Well,
I live in Southern California.
I was going to say, you're talking about Mexican food in America. You're not talking about like Mexican going to Mexico eating
Vallarta, exactly.
Because their food was amazing. So.
Great Mexican food is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's generally accompanied by a couple of dozen margaritas, so that makes everything.
And some live music.
Wonderful. Live music by guys with sleeves that look like they could live by themselves.
Exactly. That was my
karaoke sleeves. Fabulous mariachi.
That was my experience in Mexico. It was very nice. Well, where can people find you if they're going to look for
Bruce? WeGotBruce.com is a site run by a fan, and he knows more about what I'm doing than I know. I mean, I find things out by going on. Really?
That's very convenient, Bruce.
It's very nice. I recommend it to if anybody wants, to have a fan create a site for them. Fabulous. This guy's wonderful.
Like an intern.
Sort of, almost, yeah. But I will. The live stuff is coming back. I'm going to be doing. I'm a gay icon, so I'm doing Palm Springs Pride, which they do at the first week of November, because that's Palm Springs is so hot in the summer that you can't. Everybody would pass out.
You got to wait in the winter.
Even hotter.
They wait for the seasons to change, and so they get it right when it's still hot. But so I'll be there November 3rd, and I'm doing Fort Lauderdale for Thanksgiving, November 27th, at a club called Savor, and so I'm like inching my way back into live performance.
Fun.
Unless, of course, there's another drag queen like Delta Variant. Remember her? She's a super spreader.
Yeah, there's one coming up called Moo
Variant, which is her cow-like sister.
Yeah.
She's a real beast. And little Lambda Variant.
Bad idea.
Those are all on the list. But they've identified them already. So, but Delta's the big super spreader.
The fun has yet to come, my friend.
Absolutely. Well, I'll hope to catch you in Atlanta then, because that would be amazing.
That would be fun. It would be fun to go back.
They have a fantastic community here. Matter of fact, this
place.
weekend, I do believe it's Labor Day weekend, so there will be. I hope they canceled it this year because of COVID. Nope.
I think they did. I think a lot of stuff got reinstated and then pulled back. Exactly.
And it's all fixed.
But, a lot of it depends on what Georgia. It's probably different from California in terms of what's mandated and what is
slightly.
Oh, just slightly.
Just a little bit.
We're a little different.
Excuse me, Governor Kemp. Do I have to wear a mask in the bathroom?
Bless your heart.
Yeah, bless your heart. Exactly.
Freedom.
Bless your
Translation.
heart.
Right. Go fuck.
Oh, you must be new here, huh?
That's right.
That's it.
Yeah.
You're on to them. You're on to them.
Bless you.
Man, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and be with us today.
It was great.
I had an absolute blast.
Great. I'm delighted. I had fun too. All right.
Hit it, Jared.
Well, everyone, that's another episode of VO in Stereo. I can't say enough of how much I enjoyed this. God, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to replay it right now and watch it myself. But thanks everyone for coming. And from us, we will see you next time.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.